Right, good morning to you, James Price.
I hope that I'll be less of a headache for you than the earpiece or the Chagos
Honestly,
Islands.
you wonder who makes these things and whose skull they actually fit. It's like, honestly, literally, in this job, you're there messing about with bits of wires and technology, and you've got a countdown going on, and there's panic stations, and then you think, great, what a fantastic way to kick off the show. And what an equally positive way to kick off the show, talking about this ridiculous Chagos surrender. The more I read into this, the more confused I really am about all of this, because I'm pretty certain we just didn't have to do it.
We didn't have to do it. And the thing that really upsets me about this is the fact that the Prime Minister is lying to the British people. All of his cronies are lying to the British people. They're lying to you. They're taking you for fools. They don't care about you or any of your life quality getting better at all. They care about, and it sounds like a cliche, they care about their fancy North London dinner parties and things like that. But more than that, they care about their, quote, international reputation. All of this comes from the fact that various diplomats and British lawyers and people like that have been made to feel a little bit embarrassed at certain international conferences now, because Mauritius has for a long time been lobbying for these islands that they've never owned themselves before, that are thousands of miles away from them, but they think they can jump on this kind of decolonisation, empire, terrible bandwagon, isn't the West evil, in order to get something out of it. And these international tribunals are now staffed by people, appointed by people, by President Putin of Russia and President Xi of China. And we are listening to these people because Keir Starmer cares more about international law than he does care about the interests of the British people. And I'd want to ask him, is this international law here in the room with us right now? Because it's getting to the point that I think he should be put into a straitjacket.
I mean, what is absolutely mad is when you actually read the original ICJ ruling, which of course had that judge sitting on the board making this decision that we had to give the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, which is gazillions of miles away, has nothing to do with those islands. When you read that initial ruling, which is legally non-binding as well, it is a madness. It uses language such as decolonisation. It is just an absolute jumble of wokery. And I just don't understand, either with this government or the previous government, who said, well, we wouldn't have done this, we wouldn't have struck that deal, we wouldn't have done it in quite the same way. Well, they equally didn't tell the ICJ to bog off. Why not?
Well, for a while they did. The person I would back on this, and I can quote him directly, would be Dominic Cummings, who's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, but he says this Chagos swear word came to my desk in number 10. It's all total swear word from a few government lawyers. MI6 knows it, GCHQ knows it, the MOD knows it. Everyone knows this is just far left international law swear word. Right, so this is the truth of it. And when Cummings was there, because he had the courage and the fortitude to actually stand up to these people and say you're talking complete swear word, it all stopped. And it was, I'm afraid, slightly weak ministers falling for this kind of stuff again, who maybe got into posts after Cummings left and there wasn't the bulwark of someone sensible and brave like him in post. I think it's worth explaining that there are only a very small number of political appointments in the British system. I would say far too few. Right, when Starmer came in last year, 100 ministers changed jobs, 100 Tories left, 100 Labour joined, and then 100 advisors as well. Everybody else, all exactly the same people. All the same people in the Foreign Office, all the same people across the bits of the deep state in the diplomatic service, all the people who are saying that international law is very, very important. And it's why I think this is a fairly illegitimate decision, even though Starmer won the election.
What happens if you break international law? I mean, it's not even legally binding, so I don't know how you break something that is simply advisory. But even if it was legally binding, what happens if you break it? Do you go to international law prison?
We're going to start seeing arrest warrants put out for David Lammy. I mean, it's ludicrous, this sort of stuff, right? You know, we fund these organizations, including the United Nations and all these other things, much more than most other countries do, between us and the United States and maybe a few others. And yet they have been completely taken over by the Chinese and by the Russians to advance their own international ends against that of Britain and America. And I think it's time that we start wising up to this. These things are complete bunkum, and they have been completely, I think, delegitimized from when they started. Like the ECHR is another example of this, right?
Do you ever think, actually, I mean, Sir Keir Starmer's obsession with going back into the EU, Ed Miliband's obsession with net zero and destroying the country's economy, because basically high energy costs are the roots of all evil in this nation, their obsession with going to Beijing every 5 seconds. What is it with these people? I mean, do they actively hate Britain? Are they actually working at the behest of the Communist Party in China? I cannot make head nor tail of some of their decision making.
I almost hope that they are shady agents at Beijing, because the alternative, which I think is the truth, is that they're just morons who are not up to the job of governing this once great country. They're not up to the job of being able to stand up to this enormous blob of civil servant bureaucrats who have actually been running the country for a long time. They don't have the fortitude, again, as I said, of someone like Dominic Cummings, who would just say no to stuff that was obviously nonsense. And I hope that whatever party comes and succeeds Labour, because these need to be turfed out as quickly as possible, understand the scale of the blob that they're going to be fighting against. Does Nigel Farage have a plan for cutting away all of these people? Does Kemi Bader not? Because that is what needs to happen. And if they come into office without a plan like that, Alex, they're going to be completely snookered as well.
Yeah, I hear this Pete, from time and again. I hear this. People like past Prime Minister Liz Truss will say, you've got no idea what it's like to be in that position, how much they scup you, how little they actually let you do. Let's talk now about Rayner urging Angela Reeves, who's that? Rachel Reeves, to get rid of child benefit for middle-class families, basically. If the highest earner's salary is between 50,000 and 80,000, why on earth can't you pay for your own kids? I mean, on the surface of it, we're cash-strapped, we're broke, got to cut some money here or there. But the unfairness again of going after the people who pay into the economy, who prop the economy up with their taxes, because if you're earning over between 50 and 80,000 pounds, you're probably contributing a decent amount. Taking constantly from those people and redistributing that money, particularly to people who've come into the country yesterday, it's appalling.
Yeah, do you know what? I actually don't know how much someone on 50 to 80,000 is a net contributor or not, because the state now spends so much money, and so much of it gets wasted and swirled about and lost. But if you said to someone in America that £50,000 a year to £80,000 a year was a high salary, they would laugh at you. The part of the problem is we've not had proper wage growth for a long time, or just growth in the economy in general. This week the economy grew 0.7%, and people are cheering like they've won the UEFA Cup there last night, right? This is crazy talk. But we are a poor country because of policies that this government, and I'm afraid previous ones as well, have put in. And so if we got growth going, we wouldn't need to have this conversation. But I think the other part of it is the extremely stupid way that we tax people huge amounts of money and swirl it around inside the center of the system and send it back again and it's worth a lot less. Why don't we tax people less, spend less, get the economy growing, and then we wouldn't have to worry about any of this stuff. But all of that, of course, is absolutely anathema to the socialist mindset, and it's why the socialist mindset inside government is killing our country.
Well, good news today. Ofgem's lowering the energy price cap to 1,720 from July. We're still going to have some of the highest energy prices in the world. This is nothing to do with Ed Zero and his madcap climate plans. This is basically just to do with the lowering cost of gas, which goes up and down like a yo-yo on a string, depending on what OPEC feel like doing from one day to the next. Why don't they get it that actually energy costs are at the root of everything, right? If energy bills were less, there'd be more money for the NHS to spend on treatment. In fact, all public services would work better. If energy costs were less, that would be great for business. We could have manufacturing. If energy costs were less, maybe companies could pay higher wages, which means that if energy costs were less, they wouldn't have to bring in migrants as cheap foreign labour. If energy costs were less, guess what? People wouldn't be facing a cost of living crisis. If energy costs were less, people would be far happier in this country. And they do nothing about this. You've got Ed Miliband on his Hercules little journey around all the windwarm lands of the United Kingdom with his ukulele, buying all this rubbish from China while they're using slaves, and are frankly sitting there thinking, hoo-ha, I'm going to undermine the system. And we've had warnings again. Sir Richard Dearlove today writing in The Independent saying, if we allow China to take any part in our energy grid, they're going to be able to put these kill switches in things like solar panels. I mean, dear Lord, they found them over in America to mess about with the grid, to turn the lights off if they they want to. I mean, this government they're either useless or treacherous.
Yeah, maybe the toxic combination of both, right? Unfortunately, the Treasury only ever supplies the amount of money it thinks that we can afford to face these sorts of threats from China, not the amount of threat that we actually do face. And as a result, you end up with the accountants saying, no, we've just got to go in with China. It's actually really good and fine and all the rest of it. And Ed Net Zero Brain Cells Miliband just goes along with this. What have we got as the crown jewel of the defense system is the Trident nuclear submarines, right? So we've managed to fit a nuclear reactor onto a tiny submarine, a stealth submarine, no less. Well, if we've got the technology to do that, why can't we put one in every town? Why can't we put one dotted all the way along the coast in secure venues? Then we would have unlimited clean energy produced by Rolls-Royce, who can actually start making these, what they call small modular reactors. We wouldn't need to worry about using farmland in the same way for solar panels. We wouldn't need to worry about being beholden to the Chinese for wind turbines. We wouldn't even need to worry about fracking, although I do think we should get fracking going because it's the main driver of American energy costs being less than half the cost of ours. So we've got technologies here to do it, but you've got green morons from the Green Party saying nuclear bad, when it's not. And how's that worked out for Germany? They shut their nuclear power stations. They're opening new coal power stations. Yeah. And they were taking the rest of their energy from Russia, which meant they couldn't be strong on the war in Ukraine. We are completely mad if we don't think this is an existential emergency for our country.
Well, and we've even got, so when it comes to all the wacky net zero stuff and all the other woke stuff that the Labour Party seem to lap up enthusiastically, we've even had a report out about 4 days ago from the government's own sort of terrorism czar saying that he's worried, this is Jonathan Hall KC, speaking at RUSI, the Royal United Service Institute, saying that actually a lot of the nonsense that has become so trendy amongst the political elite, net zero, trans rights, all of this stuff, is essentially being pumped out, spoon-fed deliberately by hostile governments to destabilise the country. He says, basically, they want to make sure we've got the highest energy prices in the world and a collapsed economy. They want to make sure we're constantly fighting with ourselves and the citizens fall out with their own governments and democratic procedures. And yet this government just goes along with a lot of it. At what point is a security briefing from Five Eyes or MI6 going to cross the desk of Sir Keir Starmer that he's going to take seriously?
You're absolutely right. For people watching our live stream just now, I think I turned into the nodding dog Churchill from the adverts because I'm agreeing so violently with you on this. You're completely right. For anyone at home who's got TikTok, just know that Xi Jinping knows everything about you through your mobile phone. And if your children are watching stuff on TikTok, you've got no idea what it is they're watching. It is a Chinese super weapon aimed at the vulnerable bits of your children's brains. And people that watch it for too long come away with a positive view about the Chinese Communist Party. I wonder why that would be. TikTok in the West is like crack cocaine, but what the stuff they watch in China is just like spinach. It is a tool of control and disinformation and propaganda, and it should be banned here. It should be banned in America, which it was going to be until Trump stopped it happening, a bad thing that he has done. And we should be very, very serious about the fact that our children and the rest of us are being played with by troll farms in Russia, in China, and in Iran. And we need to get wise to this, start believing our own eyes and ears, and believing the greatness and great history of our country rather than the evil drivel that we get fed to us from these sorts of organizations and the useful idiots on the left in places like The Guardian and The Mirror and all these sorts of places that will tell you that what the Chinese are saying is right. It's not.
Oh, James, I couldn't agree more. Oh, what a world we live in, eh? Thank you ever so much for your company.